He said, "Who has got the key of the car?" So I said, "I'm the one with the key." So that's what, then he said, "Open the car." I went as if I was going to open the car, then I jumped over the fence. I made me feel anger rather than and determination to defeat the enemy. Amin had defeated us in 72. This was a mistake of some of our people, the invasion. So this one was our own Fronasa plan to start guerrilla fighting in 1973. If we had not had these mistakes, we had some few guns, we had almost like 100 guns inside Uganda. We could have started with those. But these mistakes disorganized us. And when I went back, 73, that's how I got involved with Mama. And then 74, I had to do some teaching in Moshi, but I was still coordinating. That's why I chose Moshi. Moshi was near Nairobi. I could go on the weekend to Nairobi, meet my people, go back. Then 76, that's when we resumed. The Tanzanian government contacted me again through Mr. Sokoine, the Minister of Defense, and they said we could organize again. Then I linked up with the new people, Mbabazi, Otafuire, other people. So by 75, we had revived our internal network. Now, this is the one I used in 76, when the chance came to recruit the 28, partly from here, partly from Nairobi.
I got a temporary teaching job in a primary school, Itendero Muslim Primary School. Some of you might know it. It's on the highway between Mbarara to Rushenyi Shaka. And so term 1, term 2, holiday of term 2 is when I am approached by the individuals that were working undercover for Fronasa, and I got recruited.
There was recruitment of people against the government. And I heard somebody called Museven was training people in actually land, a place called Awere. When I was in Lira, and people were going to join him, there are multiple recruitment. There are those ones going for Museven. Then there's some recruitment for Obote being done by some people.
It was also, I think, a very, very well thought out decision on behalf of Fronasa to approach me. And I think in the same way they approached the other 27 of my class. What are these young people's outlook towards life? What would they think if they were given such information? Would they run to report? Would they hold on to it and digest it? So finally, I think they debated and decided they could approach me.
I approached one person who happened to be one Zoyon. Then I approached him and said, about fighting, what are you saying? Say, for me, I'm overwilling. If I get somebody who wants to fight this regime, I would join. Because me, I see no future. All my people in the north that are being killed. And now, the killing is even going all over Uganda now. At the beginning, it started with the northern. It came to Buganda, it came to Angola, it came to the whole Uganda. even to West Nile.
We always could hear some rumors of what's happening in Uganda, and sometimes what we heard made us even more insecure, or sometimes made us feel like, okay, this struggle is now balanced, so on both sides. But generally speaking, honestly, I can say that being in Nairobi was not easy at that time, until such a time when the government in Uganda, working with the Kenyan government, started harassing people and actually arresting them and handing them over to Uganda. And so that made it absolutely clear that living in Nairobi was not the safest place to be. And maybe there must be a way we get out of Kenya. And so that's when we started listening to more people who were advising us on what to do, and wondering where now in the world we could go.
President Obote had agreed with President Moi to exchange political, I don't know, can't say asylum seekers, but people who are disturbing government. Yes. So they were starting now to hunt us down. So yes, she was. So they first took Chiria and exchanged him with I don't know who. The night they took Chiria, I think that the next day. But we had heard, Miriam Black had warned Mama, had come to Mama and warned her, and we were trying to look for ways of leaving Kenya. I remember she went and picked you from school. You were in Nyeri as well, in a boarding school. And we started preparing. We didn't know where the countries were not opening up for us. I didn't have papers, so I was not exactly under UNDP, UNHCR rather. And so I was staying, definitely I was staying because I didn't have papers. Mama was insisting. We were on a phone with Uncle John in London. Mama wanted to go to London because that is a place she understood. She knew that she would get along with help and so on. But London was taking long to open for us.
Yeah, fortunately, people were very kind, really, in the world at that time, I must say, because I met people who worked within the UN refugee offices in Kenya, and one of the legal officers there was a woman called Miriam Black, who I got to know as we continued to discuss issues of my family. And she was the one who first told me that it was important that we leave Nairobi. So I said, we leave Nairobi, and where do we go? She said, well, we can begin to look around and discuss with embassies and see where you could go. But personally, I really didn't know where else in the world we could go except perhaps the UK, because I had family members living in the UK. I thought that perhaps UK could be another place we could consider. to go and live as refugees. But when I contacted the members of my family who lived there, they told me that no, the UK government knew my husband and they knew his activities in Uganda, and they would not be willing at this time to stand between the government in Uganda and my husband's group, which they called a rebel group.
It was tough, very tough. So at the end, Red Cross gave me papers. At the end, at the same time, Sweden opened. And then it was like, Mama was like, Sweden, I know nobody in Sweden. How can I go to Sweden?
I said, Sweden? Where in the world is Sweden?
But thank God, eventually she was like, this was God's plan. So we live in Nairobi.
The Swedish experience was a much relaxed one. It was amazing, really, to me and even to the children, young as they were, to realize that life could be so relaxed and so safe, and that they could play around and nobody would be following them and nobody would be saying, you're not allowed to go there and you're not allowed to go here. So we went to Sweden and we found a camp, a refugee camp, where they had prepared for us to go. And we went to this camp, which was not a very big camp, where there were refugees from many countries of the world. But we had our cottage there that became our home. And life changed completely. We started living like normal people. Our children started going to school within the camp. And the little ones, Patience and Diana, went to a kindergarten also within the camp. And so we really felt at home. People were very kind and very welcoming. And so our experience in Sweden taught us a lot about life.
I saw directly when she came in my room that it was a special lady. It was not an ordinary people, because she moves and she is a little bit special. I worked also with other Ugandan refugees, but I saw directly it was something special with that woman. And after 2 or 3 visits with me, I asked her directly, who are you? Because I can see that it's something special with you. And then she explained for me that I have a background that the other hasn't. So she explained that she has been married with a man who was a minister in an old regime in Uganda, and now they were refugees. So yes.
At what point did you see a possibility of returning home?
Some 2 years after that, we had moved from that camp. We had been taken to a place called Gothenburg, and we had really got used to living in Sweden and managing our lives. But one day we were surprised to open the door and hear my husband coming to check on us, so to speak, as if he's coming from the neighborhood.
The bell rang and you went to the door and you came back and told me that there's somebody on that door who says that he's daddy. I came. Yes, I came and he was actually him, but looking horrible. I said, this is a version of him, but I don't remember him looking like this. Then I think you ran to mommy, and when she came, that's when we all confirmed, because she screamed, "You're wedding!"
Now, she called me and she said, you can't imagine what happened yesterday evening. Someone knocked on our door. Diana opened the door and came and said, it is a man outside. And Janet went there, and there was Yuri.
Yes.
She didn't understand anything away from me. And she told me afterward, you, Cassie, it was not my husband, it was a bushman.
But it was a moving experience, and it woke us up to the fact that there is a chance we could go back home one day.
The First Lady, Mama Janet, when she was coming from Sweden, I was still in Nairobi. She checked in at Intercontinental Hotel and she called me and I went and saw her. So we talked about, the status of the people in Uganda and the many orphans and all that sort of thing. So we kind of discussed, yes, I think it would be important to help those children. And I am happy to say that as soon as she got here, she started the Uganda women's effort to save the children, Weso.
Can you tell us about Weso and how it came to be, and at what point was it birthed? At what point?
After I had brought back my family and the children were home, so it was after a few months. But in 1986. So I visited Ruero, and of course there were places where people used to take visitors to see what had happened in Ruero, where there were so many skeletons collected together in different places to show how many people had died. And after I had gone round many such places, I was taken to what they called a reception center, a government reception center, which was like an orphanage, where they collected children who had no parents or who they met lost on the road, or just young little children. And I got to that place late in the evening, and it was getting dark, so as I drove into that place with the headlights of the car, the children got out of where they were and came out running to see the car. And they came clapping their hands, seeing somebody coming to see them, a place where perhaps nobody would visit. So I saw this, there were about 50 little children. Some of them half dressed, some of them completely naked, some of them. And they came out and they had one man, an adult, who was looking after them. And so I stood there and I said, where are these children from? And he said, they are from all over the country. There are those who have lost their parents, others have separated from their families without knowing where they are going, so we collect them here and we're trying to take care of them and such a good job because we are not able to take care of them yet, but here we try to feed them. And so I stood there and saw those children. And I had some people with me. I took pictures of those children. I took these pictures with me. And when I got home, I was looking at these pictures, and as I was praying, I just felt in my heart that this is something I have to do. In gratitude to God that these children are alive, they didn't die. But also to thank God that He also took us as a family separated, and He took care of us wherever we went, and He brought us home safely. None of us died, and we couldn't take that for granted because many people died. As I said, I had seen so many skeletons of people who died during that war. Any of us could have been those skeletons. But by God's grace, He had taken us through that time, through very, very difficult circumstances, but He brought us home. So I thought, this is what I will do as a gift to God, my Father. That's when we started Uweso.
Mama has been an amazing person. He's an amazing person. To me, all these years, it's been over 20 years, and I've seen her as a destiny enabler. And I saw her, because of her position, because of where she is, her values matter. Her values matter a lot as a first woman in the country. And so her values and her passions were really in sync with mine. And I'd always looked at her, I'd always admired her. The first thing she did that I knew of was Uweso. And then the second one was about the Uganda Youth Forum. I had young kids then, and I used to take them. And sometimes I would be one of the speakers. I would be one of the people who would be there as mothers, as parents, to make sure everything is happening together. So I always admired her in that area of her passion, of her values, and then the steadfastness, because you could hear stories of things happening, and then you would see her composed. No drama, no confusion. So I admired her from a distance.
What propelled you into politics?
Yeah, that one was a calling from God. As I've said, I knew God by that time and worked with Him very, very closely. And many friends and people who I knew and worked with knew that really I was not a person who would go into politics. And I used to say it very often, that even if I was paid, I would not go into politics. But one day, I was actually not even in Uganda. I was visiting another country, somewhere else in Europe. And I had a voice telling me to stand as a member of parliament in my father's area, where we still had a home, where we didn't go that often. But I heard something about standing as a member of parliament. I thought, that's not God. That can't be God. It's not about me. I prayed now. I said, okay, Lord, if you really are, it's you. If you really are the one talking to me, I don't want to stand with anybody and start fighting over politics, because I don't want to stand. But if you let me know that there is nobody to stand in that area, then I will know that you want me to be the one to stand there. So after I'd come home, I started hearing my husband talking to some people on phone, trying to persuade them to stand in that area. And I'd listen, and I'd hear people turning him down and saying, no, sorry, really, we can't stand, we have this or the other. So I one day said to him, I said, you know what? I think God wants me to stand there. And he laughed. And he said, you? He said, you're not a politician. You don't know these things. So how can God talk to you about this? I said, I don't know, but I believe God wants me to stand in Rahama. And so eventually he said, okay, you now have to go to SEC. SEC is a top organization of a movement, and talk to them about what you are saying, and if they allow you, we will see. And so they talked amongst themselves back and forth until they all decided, we don't think that this is a good idea. But there were some women who said, but why not? She's also a Ugandan and she wants to stand. Why can't she be allowed to stand? So they said, fine, now my husband said, we nominate a committee. That committee must go and discuss this idea, and if they decide that it's okay for her to stand, we will let her stand. If not, we will see what happens.
Mrs. Museven has done a lot for Uganda in that she has made a lot of friends for Uganda. She got a lot of aid herself into the country. Then of course she went into politics and became minister for Karamoja. And I became program officer Karamoja, working with NUSAF. I was being paid by NUSAF. So we went to Karamoja, we worked with women. We did some dams, we got women groups together. They started the crops, beautiful crops, harvests and all that sort of thing.
Karamojong people in Uganda were a weakest link, if you can call it that, to independence, to they were the ones that had most problems in the country, and I believed that they were a tribe that is very close to my own people, who are cattle keepers, who believed in cattle keeping as a lifestyle, but they had the largest challenges in the country they could not feed.
South Karamoja, we've got in a beam, big reservoirs, and mamas saw the harvesting of water, because now God was giving us a lot of water. And we had time now to see this water gathered for dry season to give it to the cows, because we knew there was going to be dry season. The valley tanks were for wet season, because they would dry during the dry season. Why? Because the cows now would come near a home and they needed water. So then you would use the valley tanks for water. So we foresaw that, and Mama helped us to answer the question of water in Karamoja.
At that time, they had 7 sub-counties. I went around the 7 sub-counties trying to find out what are the government programs in Karamoja, how are they doing, why aren't they working, and so on and so forth. And I found very little that really showed that government was serving in Karamoja. Because of the cattle rustling that kept the area unsafe and insecure, people wouldn't go to Karamoja. Government monitors wouldn't monitor the programs in Karamoja. So even the government funding that went annually as part of government budget to Karamoja would just be utilized badly by the leaders themselves on a personal level, but the government programs would not happen.
Then the second thing we did, and Mama said, after now we have gotten the water moving, can we now tackle education? Because you see, the young people now are growing and they need now to expand education. And we put in the schools, boarding schools in Karamoja. I think Mama built 21 boarding schools, dormitories, classrooms, and laboratories, teachers' houses. Fantastic facilities, and children started going to school. And at that time, she agreed with the Museven, said, look, let us give Karamojong young, elite scholarships. So because higher education is now very expensive, they have missed all the time when it was free. Now there's money required even to go to Makerere, to go to all this. Although they are universities, they are still out of reach. So we had 100 Karamojong going on the scholarship per year. And by the time Mama left, we had over 800 graduates. When she took over, we were just a handful. We were 3-4 doctors only. Now we have 45 doctors. Most of this came from the graduate scholarship scheme, which Mama and Museven, set up for Karamoja.
I was there knowing very well that the challenges in Karamoja would only change by God's intervention himself, not me, not because I wanted to serve, not because I understood them, but I believed that if God takes me to Karamoja by his own intervention, he would be the one to really change Karamoja.
Then she said, okay, now what we do, the next thing, let us search our minds. How can we change the way people live so that they can start to produce more and also enjoy housing with a small mabati on top and maybe a bed to sleep on? From a hut to that is a big jump, a big leap. So we started at that time what we call the modern villages. And that was the time when we had this hydroform coming into Uganda. And Mama helped us with the hydroform machines. And we started building houses for grandmothers, for men and women in their own villages, changing the environment where they were living. I can tell you, when you go now, the number, people picked this up now as on themselves and started building mabati houses, even if they were semi-permanent. And Mama said, no, let us reward those who have given their guns with mabati.
Private. Because the Banyankore say, okusima eka, okusima omuntu, okusima eka to appreciate.
Say, the first memory is that walking on the road, because he was at Chamati at the time, but at a boarding school, and sorry, at a boys' school, and I was at a girls' school, and meeting on the road is the first memory of meeting him, seeing him, knowing him. But his mother was related to my mother, so he also, remember, he talks about a time he came to our home, and then we didn't really meet for a long time.
No, Mama, who were together at 1950, because her father died 1955, and I took milk and some story there to the funeral. Then I think they had been studying on the Kajara side, where her father was working. Kajara, Rwashameire, Bongera. So that's when I started seeing her in 1958. Then, of course, that was the year I went to Mbara High School. The following year. Then they stayed. And then later on, I came to see her again in 1970.
Uganda was very, very difficult and really dark. Life was very difficult and very insecure. The country was very insecure, the people were insecure. And it's about that time that we left Uganda, and I lived with my cousin John Kazora and his family in Kenya for some time, because people were getting lost and they so and so has been killed, so and so has been taken away, and you don't know where they are taken away, and so life was very, very challenging. So that's when I finally met my husband and got married, and we had to move to Tanzania. So that's where our life as a family started, now with Museven.
Why Tanzania?
Why? Because that's where Yor was living already and preparing to fight the Amin's regime.
When Idi Amin came in 1971, Ugandans, as they always do, they gave him the benefit of doubt. Unfortunately, Amin became the real nightmare that Uganda had never seen. He was the army commander. And somebody who, when we are told, was a very amiable fellow. He liked to play his accordion, to merry-make, and on the surface, a very human person. But when he took power, any threat to that power, whether perceived or real, was countered with violence, with killings, and so many Ugandans went into exile. And the country really started spiraling downward.
Because the Amin regime did not respect the rule of law, you can say the judiciary was weakened. How? First, they did not take people to court. For them, it was summary justice. Secondly, the military created military tribunals to try murder and treason outside the court system. They tried economic crimes tribunals to try economic crimes like smuggling, hoarding, and overcharging. So the military tried to, what shall I say, work outside the judiciary. Thirdly, there was intimidation. Judges feared to take some decisions. Lawyers feared to represent people.
It was terror. It was terror because, unfortunately, by the time Amin took over, many of the key military leaders were from Acholi. And it became the threat that the military regime feared most. And linked to that, anybody who could express himself also became a threat. And so while initially it was the key military people, Acholis and the Langis and other tribes in the military who were targeted, Amin later realized that getting rid of those people was not enough. Even those who were not in the military did not embrace him the way he wanted, and he saw them as threats. And so running into exile was the safest thing that most Ugandans across the communities would do.
I see, I was here when Benedict was killed. I was at the Lodome Center, September 72. I was a senior lecturer at the Lodome Center when Kiwanika was killed. We were told, you know, the Chief Justice has been taken, seized and taken. Once they seize you, you know you are gone. And I witnessed the trial of Archbishop Ruomo at Nairo Mansion. When Amin was making a statement, all heads of institutions had to be there. If you're not there, you're killed. Yes, because you don't support Amin. So we went there, witnessed. They were trying the room. You know, you had guns. They were reading charges on him at Nairo. After that, I felt so sad. I just went home because they went inside there now to have a discussion about what. The evening we heard that a woman had been killed, Oriem and Oboth Fumbi. I was here in this country, 77. I was at Lord Women's Center.